Behavioral scientist and New York Times bestselling author Jon Levy spent the last 15 years meeting with all different types of leaders, from Olympic medalists to prime ministers, Nobel laureates, and CEOs who've all crushed it. In his new book, Team Intelligence: How Brilliant Leaders Unlock Collective Genius, he dives into what makes that leadership work.
Team Intelligence: How Brilliant Leaders Unlock Creative Genius. The book, out now, is written by New York Times bestselling author Jon Levy. He's a behavioral scientist, and we are lucky to have Jon with us here this morning. Congrats on the new book. It's great to see you here.
Thank you.
You and I know each other, and that's because we want to give a little background here. Jon does something it's called the influencers. Now, these are not social media influencers. These are just leaders in various industries who you invite to come have dinner, make dinner together. It's not very good, in case you're wondering. And then the thing is, no one can talk about what they do for a living until the end, and then you suddenly realize you're having dinner with, like, the most amazing people.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. In a world filled with endless opportunities, why would two men who have built 13 multi-million-dollar businesses altruistically invest 5 hours per day to teach you the best practice business systems and moves that you can use? Because they believe in you, and they have a lot of time on their hands. They started from the bottom, now they're here. It's the Thrivetime show starring the former U.S. Small Business Administration's Entrepreneur of the Year, Clay Clark, and the entrepreneur trapped inside an optometrist's body, Dr. Robert Zuckner. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses.
We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here.
Started from the bottom, and now we're at the top, teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. The seeds bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of 5, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the CNC up on your radio, and now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get.
Well, Jon, our listeners just heard the intro, so some people know who I think you are. But if you were going to describe yourself to our listening audience, what's the best way to describe you and really that which you do?
I would say I spend much of my life convincing people to come to my home, cook me dinner, wash my dishes, and clean my floors. And the weirdest thing is they thank me for the experience. I'd say that's probably the most interesting way I could describe myself. But I should probably give people some context, because that sounds like I'm trying to steal people's kidneys or something like that.
Well, you know, you've been a best-selling author, and it's even hard to describe how you became a best-selling author. So for anybody out there that kind of wants to know, okay, this guy was born on Earth like all of us, but now he's a best-selling author, he's a thought leader. What was that path like for you?
So I would say I was in my late 20s. I was overweight, broke, and underemployed. And I came across some research on what actually causes people to connect deeply, and the impacts that they have on each other. And so I was a behavioral scientist. I kind of developed a model, and to prove out my theories on how to connect with people and have them have a positive impact on you, I created a secret dining experience. 12 people are invited. They're not allowed to talk about what they do or even give their last name. They cook a terrible meal together. And when they sit down to eat, they find out they're with Olympians and astronauts, Nobel laureates, and the guy won a Grammy for barking on Who Let the Dogs Out. And it grew into this wild community. I've hosted over 400 of these dinners, over 4,000 people. And as a byproduct of all of the interactions and meeting people who are just so much, frankly, more extraordinary than I am, it had this fantastically positive impact on my life. And many of the ideas that I've written about and insights that I've had are a byproduct of the people that I met at these events. And so when I put them down in a book, I was able to share something I think that was really original. And also, after hosting so many media personalities for the past 15 years, a lot of them invited me onto their shows. And so I was also able to promote the book.
And so you're a best-selling author and a behavioral scientist. Is that the actual title?
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you-
I do research. I frankly do less of it these days because I have two very young children. But I probably the most well-known study I did was uh, we it was probably the biggest study ever on dating. We looked at 421 million potential matches between people from the dating app Hinge, and found out the real reason people date, and it's not what people think it is.
do you tell us a little more about that? For anybody out
Sure,
there who's
sure.
but somebody out there said, wait. I've been trying to find a girl for years, trying to find a guy. Someone out
Yeah,
there
yeah.
has been really using Hinge right now to unlock their love life. What's your
So
observation there?
we have ideas like, oh, we opposites attract. Totally just not true. Uh, in fact, across every factor that we could find, the more similar you are to somebody, the more likely you are to date them, down to your initials. So in your case, and a person with CC as their initials would have a 11.6% increased chance of dating you just for your initials. If you went to the same kind of college, it could increase the chances of matching by up to 68%. In fact, across everything except one thing. We thought introverts would date introverts and extroverts would date extroverts. The problem was that two introverts never started a conversation. So you needed one extrovert. But other than that, we really just feel safe with people who are familiar, and we're more attracted to them on average.
That is wild. And again, these are the kind of observations you're not going to find anywhere else. I'm going to pull this up here. This is your new book here, Team Intelligence, How Brilliant Leaders Unlock Collective Genius. Tell us about what inspired you to devote the hundreds and hundreds and then thousands of hours needed to put together a book like this. I mean, what inspired you? What was that tipping point moment where you thought, I should write this book?
So there's this kind of funny thing that happens that whenever you hear about leadership, like it could be Harvard Business School or one of the big consultancies saying, oh, we'll train your leaders. They always say the same things. It's here are the 10, 12, 8 essential skills that every leader needs. And that didn't add up because when I looked at all the people that I've hosted across these dinners and keep hosting, they are top of their industry. These people are literally CEOs of major companies and executives and military leaders and all that. And a lot of them don't have any of these skills that we are told are essential. And then when you compare it to the leaders that are in our society, Elon Musk, very accomplished, but would you say he's known for creating psychological safety and creating consensus among his teams? No. Like none of these famous leaders have these quote unquote essential skills. So they can't be essential. They might be nice to haves. And so I started looking at what actually matters because the narrative we have clearly is wrong. And it means that a lot of people who could be great leaders aren't even trying. And a lot of people who are leading are just there because they have a decent resume.
Now, I'm vigorously taking notes. I know a lot of our listeners are as well. And so I would like to ask you on behalf of all the business owners watching this show. In my case, I manage hundreds of people, or our companies manage hundreds of people. And, obviously we want to manage people in the most win-win way possible. We want the employees to love working with us. We want our customers to be happy. So I don't think anybody watching this show who employs people wants to have a dysfunctional management team or dysfunctional management process. However, by default, many employees are disengaged from the workplace. I mean, you have organizations like Nielsen that will study and survey employees. They find the vast majority of employees are disengaged in the workplace. Tell us about this team intelligence and how the brilliant leaders that you've observed, how they are able to actually unlock the collective genius, as you say.
So I think that there's kind of two separate aspects that we need to look at. The first is, what is the leader's role? And the second is, how do the teams operate, right? So right now we keep saying, okay, if you want to have a great organization, you have to have the perfect leader. Okay, maybe that's true, maybe not. Let's ask what a leader does. Well, it turns out that when we really looked at the characteristics of a leader, there was only one thing that defined it, one thing that was essential. They needed followers by definition. And when you actually then ask the question of why people follow, the most common answers are vision and charisma. And so I would ask the executives at companies and say, okay, so you're telling me that your people, all of your leaders have vision and charisma, and they would laugh at how ridiculous that was. And then they would ask, okay, Jon, what's the real reason? Well, the real reason is a strange quirk of human behavior. Clay, do you remember when you were in high school, probably Sundays at about 6 p.m., how you would feel? The
Sundays at 6 p.m. in high school. Man, I was playing a lot of basketball at that time. So I probably was en route to a basketball tournament or coming home from one. That's kind of where I was geographically, I should say.
Okay. Now, emotionally, though, Sunday at 6 p.m., people tend to feel the Sunday scaries, even now in the workforce, right? They're anxious for the next day. They're free, but anxious. Friday at about 1 p.m., when you were in high school, you were probably locked in class, but beyond excited. And that's because for human beings, our experience of life isn't based on the present, it's based on the future that we believe we have. And so when our future feels exciting, we're excited. When our future seems dim, we are upset. The reason we actually follow is that when we interact with a leader, they cause us to feel emotionally that there will be a new and better future. You don't need to like them. You do not need to want to hang out with them. And we will ignore and forgive all their transgressions if they make you feel that the future will be better. That's it. It doesn't even make them competent. So that's the first thing to understand. A leader's role is quite simple. It's to give people a feeling that tomorrow is going to be better than today. Now, that just gets the crew together for the heist. It doesn't mean that they're going to get away with the heist. To get away with the heist is actually a different area completely. After September 11th, the research report came out, and what was discovered was that the CIA knew about half of the plan and the FBI knew the other half. But they worked so poorly together that they became collectively stupid. And it led to probably the biggest screw up in terms of information in US history. Now, a bunch of money was then spent on research to understand what actually makes them smarter. How do we get them to be able to solve problems as quickly as possible? And it turns out that none of the things that we traditionally thought actually matter. So, Clay, you know what we always say, oh, we need to get the best people, the smartest people, right? It turns out that that doesn't predict how well a team does. We need to get people to like each other. Doesn't help. Average IQ doesn't help. IQ of the smartest person. You know what the single greatest predictor was? And don't jump on this. Let me explain it once I say it. The single greatest predictor was the number of women on the team. And it is not a chromosomal gender thing. It is because women tend to score higher on emotional intelligence. And when you look at a team's dynamics, the ability to coordinate outpaces talent. When you go from a single sport like tennis, you could be pure talent. When you go to a group sport like basketball, it's about the teams that can pass and coordinate. And emotional intelligence allows us to know when to hit a topic, when not to, when to push, who to go to for information, and all that kind of stuff.
Now, I'm taking notes here, and I want to make sure I'm unpacking this and really understanding. You know, one is you're saying that the leader needs to cast a vision that tomorrow will be better than today.
That's why we follow. Yes.
So if somebody out there is, let's say they own a contracting business, they're a doctor, they're a dentist, they're a lawyer, home builder, whatever, and they have a staff of 50 people or less, what would be the practical way in which our listeners out there could grab that idea and bring that into the workplace to, you know, get their employees to be excited about tomorrow and maybe to follow them with more enthusiasm?
So I would say that they would follow and engage with that leader because they make us feel that way. Now, you could actually accomplish that in a whole slew of ways. The reason that people think it's vision and charisma is that it's easy to see somebody like a Steve Jobs who sells you on a future, right? But it turns out that what causes us to feel that is that you, Clay, have a handful of super skills that are so disproportionately strong that when people interact with them, they go, wow, with him in charge, I don't need to worry about that. Right? Now, for Elon Musk, it's the ability to think at scale and move faster than anyone in our society. That doesn't make him pleasant to interact with, right? But when we interact with those skills, we say, wow, that guy's going to accomplish something. And so we're willing to invest or work for him. The key here is that you need to rely on your super skills and not try to copy somebody else's. So you have an analytical mind that's extraordinary and an ability to communicate complex ideas in really clear ways. Those are some of your super skills. Now, leaning into that, when people interact with them, they go, wow, okay, that guy has really great ideas and explains them really well. I can see how following him will solve this problem. Does that make sense?
It does. And I want to make sure that the listeners, I want to make sure that anybody watching this really gets this. What you've done is you've sat down with, Olympic team captains. You've sat down with military leaders. You've sat down with pretty much the heads of many important things. And you've tried to distill all of this into a book that is practical, that it's actionable. Could you share with us just a little bit about how your book is organized for anybody out there that maybe hasn't read any of your previous books before, or maybe somebody who has, but maybe they're wanting to read this book? How have you organized this information in the book?
We start off by kind of dispelling all the rumors, all the kind of junk that we've been told about leadership. And then we build up an understanding of what actually matters. Because what would cause you to be a great leader is different than what would cause me to be a great leader, and so on. We each have our unique skills. Now that we're very clear on how to be a leader and how to even improve, because we go deep into that, the question becomes, how do we make our teams as smart as possible? Because the role of any leader is to get the team to be able to solve problems as quickly as possible. That's it. Now that this entire second half of the book breaks that down, there are three basic characteristics. There's the ability to create alignment. We're all heading in the same direction. There's attention, what to pay attention to, when and how. And the third characteristic is resources. Teams with more unique resources that people are aware of have an ability to solve problems faster. So we go piece by piece, explaining each of them, how to apply them to your team, and how to produce those results.
Now, you're doing something right, because for anybody out there that goes to Google right now or YouTube or wherever they want to look you up, I mean, you've been brought in to do talks at Google multiple times. You've been on NBC, you've been on CBS. You really are kind of in the air everywhere. And so you've clearly been putting out information that people want to know. But if we get back into the brass tacks of the book here, for somebody that says, okay, how could buying your book improve my life? Can you touch on alignment for a second? How does your book talk about alignment in a practical way that our listeners could benefit from?
So let's you mentioned, I think, Nielsen. There's this great piece of research that asked, how many employees at a company know what the company's mission is? And it turns out that at the average company, 60% of employees do not know what the goal of the company is. From the remaining 40%, 24% don't care. That means 16% of your entire company is trying to make sure everybody is heading in the same direction. You want to make a team stupider. One of the fastest ways is have them go in different directions that may oppose each other. And so the first piece of advice we give is, as a leader in your organization, you have to make sure that everybody knows what the company's mission is, what their team's role is within that mission, what the individual's role is within the team, and then the step that nobody takes is to get really clear on a person's personal goals and align them to the company's. Because let's say, Clark, you want to buy a house, but you don't think that you're going to be able to afford that down payment working for the company. You're going to be splitting your attention between Uber driving or trying to start a Twitch channel or something. But if you can have a conversation and have somebody see that, hey, listen, if you do your work and we hit our target numbers, we are going to get bonus so much that you'll be able to afford that down payment for your house. And then what happens is that you can then say to the person, can I count on you to put in all that effort over the next year to make that happen, so that not only does the company succeed, but you get to have that dream of that home that you want. Now everything is aligned and everybody's heading in the same direction. You have all of that person's attention.
So leaders are able to, good leaders, effective leaders are able to help their teammates understand how achieving the big goal is going to help the individuals. That's a pro tip, everybody out there. If someone's watching this right now and they're not doing that, your advice would be what, Jon?
My advice would be this. If you want your team to succeed and have the highest intelligence possible, you need to create alignment. But I'd also say the following. Clay, you're very personable. Not every leader is. We can't expect leaders to be all things to all people. And if you're not the one who can have that conversation with your people, it's just the leader's responsibility to make sure it happens. You can empower somebody else on your team who might be better at that. So maybe you have a chief operating officer who's really great at having those conversations. Great. Let them have those conversations with people. You do not have to do everything personally. You can rely on the unique skills of the different people on your team to make it happen. But as a leader, you have to make sure that there's alignment.
Attention. Let's talk about attention for a second. I think a lot of times leaders are talking and the staff is scrolling through their phone, not paying attention, yawning, looking away. I don't know what people are doing, but a lot of times I see businesses that they'll bring me in sometimes to speak to them. And I'll notice just the way people are responding to the leaders or the managers sometimes indicates they're not really paying attention. Does your book talk about engaging employees and getting them to pay attention?
So the question of attention goes far beyond just like, is the person doom scrolling on, Instagram in a meeting? It's how do we focus the attention of the entire organization and on what? Right? Because if you don't know what to focus on, try producing results. It's impossible. So let's start off with the basics. Have you ever tried to get stuff done and then throughout, let's say, an hour block, you get like 15 messages, everybody says it's urgent, they need some files, they need answers to stuff and so on? Has that ever happened to you?
That would be my Mondays.
Yes, exactly. What they're doing is robbing you of your ability to focus and produce work. You've lost your attention. And so it turns out that the most effective teams have a very specific communication pattern. It's called bursty communication. And what that is they'll take a meeting. They might argue it out in the meeting. It's okay to have friction, right? It's sometimes very healthy. But when that meeting is over, everybody is absolutely clear on next steps, what their responsibilities are, and where they can find the information that they need. That way, instead of coming to you for the files, they already know where it is, and you can actually then, when you're apart from each other, get your work done without interruption. So it's about getting stuff done when you're together and making sure you do it with integrity so that everybody has everything they need. And then when you go apart, you have that time to actually focus and do work. Because if you don't get that time to actually do work, then how are we going to accomplish anything?
Now, with the limited time we have, your attention or your time today with our show, I want to ask you about resources. Can you tell us about resources?
Sure.
What does your book talk about as it relates to resources? Because I have this belief that oftentimes it's not about resources; it's about resourcefulness. What does your book teach us about resources?
So I think you make an excellent point. When we hear resources, people think money or manpower or something like that. When I say resources, I mean the skills, mental models, experience, knowledge, and it could also be resources like money or cars or whatever it is that an organization has. And one of the biggest issues is that people are completely unaware of the skill sets that their coworkers have. An effective team makes the implicit explicit. What do I mean by that? Clay, let's say you speak 5 languages. So that way, if I'm doing an international business deal, I know I can come to you to help communicate rather than hiring a consultant. Or let's say I'm trying to get a government contract and I find out that you spent 3 years working at the White House. You probably have expertise in contacts, but if I was unaware of your background, I would never know to come to you for those answers. So what we need to actually do is have people be aware of all of the resources in their organization so they know who to go to find the answers rather than doing third-rate Google searches or asking a AI that might be getting it wrong. They can actually go internally to the right person.
Now, with this book, I mean, I personally believe that in buying self-help books or management books or leadership books, it's a great investment in your future because you read a great book and you get 2 or 3 nuggets out of it, let's say, and you apply those to your life. I could think of books that have specifically made me literally millions of dollars. I think about Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I think about Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I think about How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I think about how those skill sets or those knowledge bombs that I learned, how those implemented, how once I implemented those within my career, they actually helped me earn more money. So I would say buying a book from you might actually make our listeners money. But why should everybody out there in this world where there are lots of books, lots of songs, lots of movies, lots of media, why should everybody out there pick up a copy of your book?
So I think there's kind of 3 basic things. The first was when we were writing this book, or when I was writing this book, I was so tired of business books that just tell you if you follow these rules, everything works out. And so I did a couple of things. The first was I actually looked at how do we actually handle things when things go wrong? Like, what are the bad potential situations so that we can prepare you to handle those? Because not everything always works out perfectly. You know that. The second thing is that I spent a lot of time dispelling myths. One of the big things is that it's not so much the things that you know that are an issue, it's the things that you don't know that aren't true. Like you think are true and you keep doing them and are actually causing damage. And it turns out that when it comes to leadership and teams, almost everything we're currently doing is actually causing damage and we don't realize it. And so often it's about just stopping the problem rather than getting it perfect. And so we break that down really simply. And the third is I was sick and tired of how serious these books are. So I worked with a comedy team to actually make it funny. And so it's a really amusing book and it pokes fun at a lot of stuff. And it's a super fun read. So yes, you'll get dispelling things. You'll get nuggets that fundamentally change the way you work, but you'll also have a great time as you do it.
Now, my final question I have here for you is sometimes we get on a podcast as a guest, or in this case, I'm the host of the show, and I get off the show and I go, man, I wish I would have asked him that question. Or maybe as a guest, you get off and say, ooh, if he would have just asked me that question. Is there anything on your heart there? Is there a particular question that you maybe wish I would have asked, or any statement that you'd like to make with our listeners out there? I'll give you the final word, sir.
So in what continuously shows up, research after research, is that the things that define the quality of our life and our success are the people we connect with and the conversations that we have with them. We keep looking for technical solutions to everything, but it seems that even in the AI race and age of AI, it's about the ability to interact effectively, which means that I encourage people to actually just take a moment and get to know their teams better and to draw those relationships so that you can solve problems together as quickly as possible.
I'm going to take note on that here. I'm going to make sure I didn't misquote you here. You're saying the things that define the quality of our life. Could you maybe repeat that again? Because I'm
Sure.
taking notes, and that's some profound stuff there.
So what defines the quality of our life is the people we surround ourselves with and the conversations that we have with them. And there's really great research on this. The first is, if you want to live a long time, it's not doing like some kale cleanse or even exercise. That's the biggest predictor. The 2 biggest predictors of how long you will live are, number 2 is close friends and family. Number 1 is something called social integration, the number of people you come in contact with in a day. If you want to predict your team effectiveness, it's emotional intelligence and what's called psychological safety. Can you actually speak up and feel like you can express an idea without being kicked out of the team, even if it disagrees with the team? And when you look at company stock value, employee sick days, and profitability, you can actually track it to the level of trust in an organization. So really, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish seems to be more of a human thing than a technical thing. The technical stuff eventually is figured out. The human stuff is what makes it all work.
You are blowing my mind all the time. Jon Levy, thank you so much for carving out time for us today, sir. I really do appreciate you. I'm going to pull up that book one more time so everyone can see the book there. And again, folks, this book right here, if you're out there, you're a leader, you feel like, man, I just don't know if I'm good at this leadership thing, or I need to improve my leadership skills, or maybe you're a great leader right now and you just want to take your leadership game to the next level, check out the book, Team Intelligence, How Brilliant Leaders Unlock Collective Genius. Again, that's Jon Levy on the microphone. Jon, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, sir. Bye-bye.
Clay, you're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. And as they say in Stoic, the obstacle is the way. And so if you let these pinheads get in your way, you're in trouble. Acta non verba is the motto of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point, New York. I had appointments to Naval Academy and Kings Point Merchant Marine Academy. And Merchant Marine Academy's motto was Acta non verba. In other words, don't listen to what a person says. Watch what they do. Clay, my honor to be on your show. And thank you for all you do. I hear the ripple effects from you are good ripple effects. You know what I mean? People rave about what they learned from you. So congratulations.
My name is Kevin Thomas, and the name of our company is MultiClean. We are a commercial janitorial service, and we serve the entire state of Oklahoma and Kansas, and soon to be Arkansas. We have probably grown 5 times. We've added, I think when we first started with you, we had 60 to 65 employees. And now we have a little over 300 employees. Before we got involved with Thrivetime, we didn't really have any systems or processes in place. So I've probably been to, in 6-7 years, I've probably been to 12 to 13 business conferences. And amazingly, each time I go, I learn something new, and I'm so excited to bring it back and show the team about marketing and how to implement, how to help you guys implement the SEO. And the coaching is just great because there's accountability, and it's just a fantastic way to grow your company. Having a relationship with Thrivetime it's just been amazing for MultiClean. Oh my goodness, it frees me up because then I don't have to take a class on search engine optimization or learn marketing or shoot video. That's not what we do. What we do is commercial janitorial service. And you guys are the experts on marketing, and you teach me and hold my hand and show me how to do it right. And therefore, now my company is much, much larger.
Folks, on today's show, we're joined by a real client. He may look like a male model. He may look like a hologram, but he's a real person. He's a longtime client. He's a man that we consider to be a friend of the Thrivetime show and a friend of mine. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Kevin. Welcome on to the Thrivetime show. How are you, sir?
Clay, I'm doing great. Had a great Christmas holiday, and I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so first question, can you tell us what is your name, first and last name, and what's the name of your company, sir?
My name is Kevin Thomas, and the name of our company is MultiClean. We are a commercial janitorial service, and we serve the entire state of Oklahoma and Kansas, and soon to be Arkansas.
And how long have we worked with you approximately at this point, sir?
It's been about 6-7 years.
Clay Clark is here somewhere. Where's my buddy Clay? Clay's the greatest. I met his goats today. I met his dogs. I met his chickens. I saw his compound. He's like the greatest guy.
I ran from his goats, his chickens, his dogs.
So this guy's like the greatest marketer you've ever seen, right? His entire life, Clay Clark, his entire life is marketing.
4,000% from February to February. Now I can better that. Okay, Clay, I don't think you know this. I'm pinching myself, and if I cry, forgive me. And the last 2.5 days, we have bettered our entire month of February in the last 2.5 days. So, and the phone's blowing up. Everything's just blowing up. You're right. It is like a rocket ship. So we're pinching ourselves, actually.
I learned at the Academy, Kings Point in New York, acta non verba. Watch what a person does, not what they say. Whoa.